It's that moment when your entire world collapses, when the foundation of your existence just vanishes beneath your feet, your security, your identity, everything you were certain about, gone in an instant. Picture this: you're 17 years old. You're a respected warrior belonging to a formidable clan. Then comes a bloody morning in October 1600 at the Battle of Sekigahara. In a single day you watch it all disappear. Your army is slaughtered. Your clan is obliterated. Your status crumbles into nothing. To survive you have to run, like a fugitive. That was the lowest point for Miyamoto Musashi, the very same man who would later be remembered as Japan's greatest samurai. Now here is what makes his story incredible: that devastating loss. It wasn't his conclusion. It was actually his starting point. In the years that followed, hiding deep in the Japanese forests, living as a masterless ronin, Musashi forged 5 mental principles. These rules didn't just save him, they built a philosophy so enduring that even now, 4 centuries later, they have the power to rescue anyone from the deepest despair. And I'm not offering you vague ideas or simple self-help clichés here. These are truths tested in actual combat, shaped by the most intense pain a person can endure. The very first rule: it completely contradicts everything you've been told about handling grief. The second one hits you with its raw, unpolished directness. And the fifth, that one is so against our instincts that most people simply refuse to believe it could actually work. But it does work. I'm going to show you how. Before we go deeper, just think for a second. Look around you. How many people do you know feel trapped in a life they never wanted? How many of your friends are putting on a brave face while everything inside them is in chaos? The fact that you're still here, still reading, means a part of you understands this kind of pain. That's not a sign of weakness. That takes real courage. Acknowledging that we need to change is actually the very first step out of the hole. So take a moment, breathe, and follow me. What I'm about to share in the next few minutes might be the deciding factor. The line between staying stuck in an endless loop of misery and finally discovering how to reconstruct your life from nothing. Trust me on this: if these methods worked for a heartbroken 17-year-old in a medieval war, they can certainly work for you. Let's go back. October 1600, Musashi stands on the plains of Sekigahara, right at the center of Japan's most crucial conflict. On his side, 80,000 soldiers. Opposing him, another 80,000. Within just 6 hours of fighting, absolutely everything was flipped upside down. Musashi's forces were wiped out. Bodies lay everywhere. Severed heads were strewn across the field like discarded fruit. But escaping was hardly a win. It was a deep disgrace. In the samurai code, an honorable death on the battlefield far outweighs living on as a coward. So put yourself in his shoes. You're a teenager. Everything is gone. You're being hunted like an outlaw. Your entire identity has been erased in a single morning. What would you do? Most would take one of 2 paths: either end their own life to restore some shred of honor, or spend the rest of their days drowning in regret, numbing the shame with alcohol. Musashi chose a different route, one that would transform not just his life, but the very core of samurai philosophy. Her first rule: embrace the brutal reality. He stopped fighting against what had already happened. Now that sounds easy enough, but it's far from it. When reality turns harsh, accepting it is incredibly difficult. Our brains are wired to reject pain. When disaster strikes, denial is our first reflex: this isn't real. Then comes the anger: why is this happening to me? Then the bargaining: maybe if I do this, I can fix it. But Musashi bypassed all of that. He simply looked at the ruins of his existence and asked, okay, this is where I am now, so what comes next?
No, why me? Not, this isn't fair. Just know what?
Changing the question like that is powerful, because the moment you accept what's already happened, all that energy you were wasting on resistance becomes available for real action. Think of it like a house on fire. You can either stand there yelling, "This house shouldn't be burning," or you can head for the exit. Which one actually saves your life? Acceptance isn't about giving up. It's a tactical move. Harvard research backs this up. They studied people who'd faced severe trauma, losing jobs, divorcing, losing loved ones. The ones who bounced back fastest weren't those who suffered less. They were the ones who accepted the new situation more quickly. Why? Because acceptance lets you focus on the key question. Given that this has already occurred, what do I do now? Musashi asked that, and the answer led him straight to rule number 2. But pause here for a moment. What is it in your life right now that you're refusing to accept? What reality are you fighting against? Only causing yourself more pain. Until you truly see where you are, you can't move toward where you want to be. The second rule: turn away from pleasures that weaken you. After facing his new truth, Musashi encountered another major temptation: the desperate need for quick relief. Imagine the pain. You're adrift, suffering, purposeless. Every day feels unbearable. The hurt is so intense, it threatens to consume you from within. At times like that, anything offering even temporary comfort looks good. Alcohol, food, distraction, anything to make you forget, even for a little while. In feudal Japan, samurai without masters often fell into that trap. They became drunks, gamblers, or sell swords. It was the expected path for those who'd lost everything. Not Musashi. He turned it down. The second rule is this: reject the comforts that diminish you. He didn't look for an easy way out. He took the tougher road, the road of intense discipline. He lived like a warrior monk, sleeping outside, eating just enough to survive, training with his sword for 8 hours daily. He meditated, he studied. He wrote. Each day was a fight against the lure of simple comfort. Modern science backs this up too. When you're hurting, chasing quick pleasure actually makes things worse. Stanford researchers found that people who handled trauma by self-care, basically indulging themselves, ended up with higher cortisol levels later. Why? Because deep down, your brain knows you're just escaping the issue, not fixing it. That creates more anxiety. It's like adding fuel to a fire. It feels good for a second, but then the flames get bigger. The disciplined group, though, they healed faster and came out stronger. Musashi understood this instinctively. He realized there's a difference between suffering that's forced on you and suffering you choose. One is chaotic and harmful. The other is deliberate and builds you up. Here's the point. If suffering is unavoidable, and it is because life includes pain, at least pick the kind that makes you stronger, not the kind that tears you down. Discipline hurts at first, but each time you resist temptation, you gain strength. Every no to something easy is a yes to the person you're trying to become. It's exactly like working out a muscle. It's painful, but it builds you up. Seeking comfort when you should be building is like taking painkillers before a needed surgery. It might numb you temporarily, but it stops the healing. Musashi later wrote a simple line that captures it all. The path is daily discipline in small things. Not grand gestures, but the little choices each day: waking up on time, doing what's necessary, saying no to what drains you. Sounds simple, try it for a week. That difficulty is exactly what rebuilds you. So tell me, what's your escape? What do you turn to that you know is actually hurting you? Because until you cut that out, you'll never be ready for rule number 3. 1612 Ganryu Island, as Musashi is about to face his most legendary duel. Across from him stands Sasaki Kojiro, known as the demon of the western provinces. A master swordsman with flawless technique, incredible speed, and a burning desire to kill Musashi. Crowds have gathered, gamblers are on edge. Everyone knows one of them won't walk away. But here's a crucial detail: Musashi shows up 3 hours late, on purpose. While Kojiro waits on the beach, getting anxious, overthinking, Mushi is calmly carving a wooden sword from an oar. When Musashi finally arrives, Kojiro loses it. He screams, insults, threatens, lets his rage take over. Musashi remains calm, breathing steadily, focused. The fight lasts 30 seconds. Kojiro, the superior technician, loses. He dies with his skull crushed by that wooden sword. Why? Your emotions are not your friends. Kojiro fought fueled by anger. Musashi fought guided by reason. That was the difference between life and death. This idea clashes with everything modern culture tells us. We're constantly told to trust our feelings, be authentic, follow our hearts. But neuroscience confirms what Musashi discovered centuries ago. Your emotions are terrible advisors. Harvard tracked 2,000 people a decade and found that 87% of their biggest regrets came from decisions made during intense emotional states. Anger, fear, sadness, even euphoria. When strong emotions take over, your judgment collapses. That's why you send that angry text and instantly regret it. That's why you overspend when you're feeling down. Emotions are built for emergencies. They're alarm bells, not navigation systems. Fear is useful if a lion is chasing you. But when you're trying to rebuild your life, letting fear take the wheel will just leave you stuck. Musashi practiced what he called the unperturbable mind. It's not about not feeling. It's about not letting feelings make your choices. Picture yourself as a pilot. Your emotions are the passengers. They can shout, cry, or panic all they want. But you're the one flying the plane. If you let passengers take control, everyone crashes. Musashi used a simple trick, the 10-second rule. Whenever a strong emotion hit, he'd pause, count to 10, breathe, let the wave pass. Because emotions are like waves, they rise, peak, and then fall. If you can ride it instead of being pulled under, you keep control. This works for anything. Anger, count to 10. Fear, count to 10. Then ask yourself, what would the most logical version of me do right now? Then act on that logic. Does it feel cold? Maybe. But it works. How many times have you sabotaged yourself by reacting impulsively? How many chances did fear make you miss? If you want to rebuild, you need to be the pilot, not the passenger. Here's the twist: when you stop being a slave to your feelings, you actually become freer to experience them because you know they won't control you. You can feel sadness without making bad choices. Your feelings become data, not orders. So, which emotion runs your life most often? Until you master it, you'll keep being your own worst enemy. Rule 4: stop making yourself the center of everything. After years alone, Musashi met a more subtle enemy himself. Loneliness weighed on him. The days blurred together. Slowly, a dangerous habit formed. He kept replaying the Battle of Sekigahara. Over and over, every choice, every mistake, hours spent imagining different outcomes. What if I'd done this instead? That constant rumination was eating him alive. It was like a wound that wouldn't close because he kept picking at it. Here's the trap. When your world falls apart, it's natural to turn completely inward. You obsess over your pain, your story, your trauma. You circle the same toxic thoughts endlessly. But Musashi saw something important. Obsession with yourself is a cage. So he made a radical choice: to push his mind beyond his own suffering. He dove into philosophy, art, poetry, architecture. He learned calligraphy, painting, sculpture. He traveled, met new people, talked to masters in other fields. He forced his brain to care about things bigger than his personal pain, and something remarkable happened. The more he learned, the smaller his pain seemed, not because it lessened, but because he gained perspective. It's like climbing a mountain. Down below, a single rock in the path looks massive, but from the summit, you see it's just one small piece of an enormous landscape. Science explains this too. Studies show that focusing only on your problems activates brain areas linked to chronic depression. But learning new things creates fresh neural connections that can actually quiet those suffering circuits. It gives your mind other places to focus. Musashi knew a narrow mind only sees narrow problems. A broadened mind sees solutions that were hidden before. He practiced this daily, spending an hour learning something totally unrelated to his feelings. Sad, study math. Angry, practice calligraphy. The goal was to break the loop of suffering and connect to something bigger. Your pain is real, yes, but it's a tiny piece of the human experience. Billions of people, millions of years of history. Why waste all that by getting stuck in one small story about your hurt? Expanding your view does two things. First, you see your problems aren't unique. Others have been through this and survived. That brings hope. Second, you find mental strengths you never knew existed because your mind was too busy suffering to explore. When was the last time you learned something completely new? A stagnant mind only finds stagnant answers. Has the fifth rule: use gratitude as a strategic tool. By 1645, Musashi was Japan's greatest swordsman. Over 60 duels, never defeated. He wrote the Book of Five Rings, still read today. But in a letter he revealed something surprising. His most dangerous enemy wasn't a swordsman. It was invisible and silent envy. Even with all his discipline, he still fell into the trap of comparing his suffering to others' apparent happiness. Seeing samurai who still had clans, status, recognition, it ate at him. Why do they have everything and I have nothing? It's not fair. That comparison was poison, undoing his progress. Because no matter how far you go, someone will always seem better off. That's when he found the final rule: gratitude, not the fake, positive thinking kind, strategic gratitude. He trained himself to focus on what remained, not what was lost. He had life, health, freedom to choose his path, knowledge, experience, a chance to rebuild completely. UC research confirms this. They split trauma survivors into two groups. One spent 15 minutes daily thinking about their losses. The other spent 15 minutes on what they still had. After 30 days, their brains looked different. The loss focus group showed more fear center activity and less reasoning. The gratitude group showed the opposite: less fear, more logic, and higher dopamine and serotonin. Gratitude literally reprograms your brain to work better. But it has to be specific. Musashi wrote down 3 exact things each night. Not vague thanks for life, but precise things. Grateful I learned a new sword technique today. Grateful my body lasted 6 hours of training. Specificity forces your brain to notice what's actually working. When you train yourself to see what works, you create more of it. It's a muscle. And here's the counterintuitive part. Musashi used gratitude in battle. Warriors focused on what they might lose fought with fear. Warriors focused on gaining fought with courage. Musashi focused on what he'd already achieved. That made him calm and confident. He entered each duel grateful just to be alive, grateful for the test. That's applied psychology. Gratitude creates mental abundance. Abundance creates better decisions. When you believe you have resources, you act like it. And acting like it creates real resources. Envy does the opposite. It creates scarcity, desperate choices, and more scarcity. So, honestly, where's your focus, on what you have or what you lack? That answer decides whether you're building or destroying. The hidden 6th rule: don't try to go back. Musashi never tried to reclaim who he was before. While most people obsess over recovering their old life, he saw that life was already dead. Wasting energy resurrecting a corpse is pointless. Instead, he asked, who can I become with what I now know? He didn't try to be that naive 17-year-old again. He built something new. A warrior philosopher blending physical skill with spiritual wisdom. He used his pain as material for a completely new version of himself. Here's the final twist: if Sekigahara had never happened, Musashi likely would have been just another forgotten samurai. The destruction of his life created the conditions for his legend. The crisis wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Maybe that applies to you too. Maybe you're mourning the person you used to be, desperate to return to normal. But what if that normal was actually a comfortable prison? What if you were living below your potential? What if this crisis is forcing you to evolve into someone you never imagined possible? Real growth demands pressure. Diamonds form under it. Muscles grow when pushed. Character is shaped in hardship. Easy times make us lazy. Hard times reveal strengths we didn't know we had. Musashi used his worst experience as fuel for his best self. These 5 rules: accept reality, reject easy comforts, control emotions, broaden perspective, practice gratitude, are the map he left. It's not quick, it's not comfortable, but it works. So here's my challenge: stop trying to fix your broken life. Start constructing a new one. Use these rules not to return to who you were, but to become who you could still be. You have two options: mourn what's lost forever or build what you can become. The choice is yours. If you pick the second, know you're not walking alone. Musashi marked the trail. Science confirms it works. Thousands have walked it before you. Your broken life isn't a punishment. It's a hidden opportunity. The question is, do you have the courage to take it? Because on the other side of that courage, a version of you is waiting, one that hasn't been born yet but desperately wants to exist. And that version, it will absolutely surprise you. So tell me, which of these 5 rules hit you hardest? More importantly, which one will you actually start using today? Knowledge without action is just entertainment. You didn't come this far for entertainment. You came here for transformation. So, what's it going to be?